keep going, don't just on and off. It's very noisy. Okay. So we'll recite Wednesday 10 times.
Please.
南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨，观世音菩萨，南无观世音菩萨。
Good evening. This evening, evening talk by Professor Yang Wu. Jin Yongsu asked me to be the moderator because Dharma Master is in Taiwan and his internet is not very stable. So that I was asked to take his place to do the moderation. First of all, let me make a short introduction to Professor Jiang Wu. Professor Jiang Wu is a distinguished professor of computer science at Carnegie Mellon University, Emeritus, where he managed the master program in technology, innovation, and computation. Jiang also was a technical fellow and chief engineer at the Boeing company, where he worked on several airplanes, including the Boeing 777. I have to emphasize this is a revolutionary job that Jiang has done in totally using software to integrate all the production and processes. All right, and made tremendous reputation for Boeing. And Jiang was also over 35 years of experience in industry and has worked at Teledyne Semiconducting, Litton Navigation and Control, GE Jet Engine before Boeing. He has authored several computer textbooks and translated 17 Buddhist books into Vietnamese, including the biography of Dharma Master Xu Yun and Dharma Master Heng San. And this evening, we are also very lucky to have Dr. Yu Chen as a Chinese translator. And we also have two Vietnamese translators, so for simultaneous translation as well. But these two translators did not want me to mention their names, so thank them very much. All right. The topic of Professor Wu's talk this evening is very interesting and very timely. And the topic is propagating the Buddha Dharma in the 21st century. Here's the abstract of the talk. Today, technology is changing our lives significantly with internet, social media, video games, streaming, and smart devices. New technologies are being created. Innovative products are being introduced almost daily, giving rise to global consumerism and distraction among people. In this presentation, the speaker will go over some historical aspects and the challenges of today on the propagation of the Buddha Dharma. Professor Wu.
Thank you very much. Bodhisattva, Venerable Master, Dharma Master, and Dharma friends. Today, I have the privilege to give a talk about propagating Buddha Dharma in the 21st century. This is a very big topic, but due to the limited time, I'm only focused on a few items and challenges. I hope that in the future, we will invite more people to have more meaningful discussions on this topic. I also want to thank Dharma Master Jinzhong for inviting me. I also want to thank Dr. Raymond Ye for the introduction, Dr. Yu Chen, and the Vietnamese DRBA translation group for the translation today. Let's start with the presentations. Did you see the presentations online?
No.
I just turn on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, you have to put it in share screen, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you have to click share screen in the toolbar in
Okay.
the middle.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you see the share screen now?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to make it a full screen? There's a in the right lower button. Not there, I think.
We're doing okay.
It's okay if it. That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Let's start to look at the whole world today. According to the most recent current United Nations report, the current population of the world is about 7.9 billion people. We will reach 8 billion by next year. And this report also giving us some religious population of the people in the world. Currently today, Christianity is estimated about 2.4 billion people. Muslim is about 1.9. Hinduism is about 1.3. But Buddhism is only about 500 million. That means less than 6%. That's a very humble number as compared with others. Buddhism began in India about 2,500 years ago, but after a few hundred years, it completely disappeared in its birthplace. Why such a wonderful, profound teaching suddenly disappear in its birthplace? There are many reasons. Most of the scholars often attribute to the lack of royal support or the invasion of the Muslim conqueror, the hostility of Hinduism regarding Buddhism, regarding the caste system, and so forth. But the major cause, I believe, the disappearing of Buddhism in India can be attributed to the Sangha, who did not keep the precept, become corrupt, and allow Buddhism to decline. Sangha are men and women who have left the home life, receive full ordinations in which they take vow to strictly adhere to the moral code of precept, such as the vow of poverty, celibacy, and harmlessness. Before the Buddha entered nirvana, the disciple asked him, "When you was in the world, you are our master. But after you enter nirvana, who will be our master? The Buddha said, after I enter nirvana, you should take the precept as master. From that day on, all people who follow the Buddha teaching receive the precept, thus upholding them. If these people do not keep the precept, but keep the money, do not cultivate, but drinking, not meditating, but lying, and not live in harmony with others, they lose the respect of the people, and the people no longer support them. That is why it leads to the declining of Buddhism in India. Fortunately, when Buddhism is in decline in India, the teaching of the Buddha already spreading to other countries by the disciple who traveled to other country, or by the people from that country who came to India and bring the wonderful teaching back to their own country. It is very important to note that there are many different schools of Buddhism that evolved from the original teaching of the Buddha due to the different interpretations of Buddha teaching when moving from India to other countries in Asia. In each country and each culture that these people encounter, it was adopted to that culture. Although all of them believe in the same principle, but some of them develop their own focus. For example, people who like meditations will be focused on teaching meditation. The people who interest in the sutra and the teaching probably will spend more time on the sutra. Therefore, we have different sects of Buddhisms around Asia. For example, when the teaching of the Buddha went south to Sri Lanka, to Myanmar, to Thailand, Cambodia, eventually they evolved into the so-called Theravada. When the teaching went north or northwest, northeast to China, it evolved and adopted the culture there and become a Mahayana school of Buddhism. When the teaching went north into Tibet, it would take the Tibetan Buddhism. Although all the schools maybe have a little bit different focus, but they share the same principle that the Buddha has teaching. And these are the very important things that we have to keep in mind, because there are two major components and concepts of the Buddha Dharma. They're called the unchanged and upon conditions. Upon condition, that means under certain situation, such as culture, climates, it is possible to modify some of the minor detail accordingly. However, the unchanged mean under no circumstances they can change the teaching of the Buddha, especially the precept and the harmonious living among the bhikshu in temple. If these precepts, if these teachings are changing, then they are no longer the true teaching of the Buddha and no longer proper Dharma and proper Sangha. Those are very important to distinguish the principle and the others. Possibility to make some modification. For example, during the time of the Buddha, most of the Sangha live under the tree. They don't stay there very long. They always moving around and beg for food. The custom is very common in India. And when they went south to Sri Lanka or Thailand, people accept that culture because those become very common to them. And that's the monk and the nun receive the utmost respect every day when they're going out begging for food. However, when the teaching went to China, the emperor really respect the teaching. So the emperor built the temple for the monk to live, because going out begging for food is unacceptable in Chinese culture. Therefore, you can see there's a differences in Theravada and Mahayana in this kind of minor modification to fit the culture. And also the climate in China is much more colder than in India. So it is possible for the monk and the nun to wear certain garment under their robe. Those are the things that I consider modifications. But the teaching of the Buddha, the key principle, can never be changed. And you see a lot of commonality in this kind of principle among all the school of Buddhism today. There are some other issues that we can see that things that happen in Buddhism when they travel from one country to other country. So again, we're talking about the unchanged and the upon conditions. Let's look into the key thing at Buddhism spread across Asia. According to some Pew Research, there are significant growing rate of Buddhism in the late 20th century. Today, Buddhism is practiced by increasing number of people in America, in Europe, and in Australia. As a matter of fact, Buddhism has become the fastest growing religion in Australia. The complete guide to Buddhist America listed more than 1,000 meditation centers in the US alone, and also more than 1,000 temples in the US, mostly from Asian immigrants in the US. My question is, should we believe in the statisticians that the high number of temple and meditations is a sign that the teaching of Buddha is now spreading rapidly across the world? Is a number of temple, number of meditation is the right thing? Now, as a Buddhist, we should look much more closer to these numbers, because among the 5 millions of so-called Buddhists, we may find that there's only small number of people who really practicing what the Buddha taught, but many only follow the tradition. That means if the parents are Buddhists, then the children also consider themselves Buddhists, even though they never go into temple and do not understand the Buddha teaching or follow the Buddha teaching. Some go to the temple today, mostly praying for success, praying for more money, praying for passing the exam, because they still consider Buddha is an almighty God who can fulfill their wish, rather than someone who can guide them to self-awakening. Let's look at the propagation of Buddha Dharma in the past century. After the Buddha entered Nirvana, the teaching is collected, reviewed, verified, and then transmit orally from the bhikshu among themselves. Eventually, there was written in sutra that are still available today. So by directly studying the sutra or the Buddhist scripture, we can still learn the teaching of the Buddha or the method of practice that help people to awaken to their own nature. Before 1950, there was very few Buddhist books in the West, mostly written by scholars rather than by Buddhist practitioners. I have read many of those books that written before the 60s, and most of them are really based on the author, based on the scholar who really do not understand about Buddhism very well, because they are scholars, they're not Buddhist practitioners. In the 60s, during the counterculture, the hippies time, there are some books about Buddhism. Some of them are mostly focused on meditation, Zen Buddhism under the influence of some master from Japan, some Vipassana meditation from a number of monks from Sri Lanka. At that time, the book is still very rare and very sketchy. It's not very many. The key thing that really appealed to the young American at that time, who really challenging the authority during the 60s, and the reason they are interested in Buddhism, because I was in university at that time, they consider Sakyamuni Buddha is a great teacher, not a god, not someone who really have authority and not the creator. Therefore, by studying the teaching of Buddha, they can learn a lot about life, and they can learn a lot about themselves. And those are, most of the book at that time was written, is very small pieces of what Buddha taught. However, because there are very limited number of genuine Buddhist books, many people learn differently with different interpretation, resulting in many false guru and false teacher. A lot of them self-proclaimed teacher claim that they have been enlightened at that time. That's many, many guru, especially in the 60s during the hippie area. Those are key things that I believe that proper Buddhism has not been able to flourish in the West yet. In the 70s and after that, there's a huge number of immigrants from Asia to America and Europe. And many of these people create and form groups and build temples. But some groups follow the Mahayana, some groups follow the Theravada, some groups follow the Tibetan Buddhism, many of the temple. But the interesting fact is each group tend to consider themselves to represent the whole Buddhism. This also led to the confusing among Westerners who really want to learn about the Buddha teaching. And those are also the cause that is even today, the genuine Buddhism has not been spreading as we expected. When Buddha is in the world, there were no different school of Buddhism. There's only one Buddha Dharma. The world today is no longer a number of separate countries with their own border. The world today is wide open. Language, we become a globalized world where transportation, information, communication are freely flowing all over the world. It is really a melting pot of multiple culture and belief. Therefore, I believe we need to eliminate the sectarian view of religion, especially in Buddhism. As Venerable Master have suggested, that all sects of Buddhism must unite and work together on propagating the Buddha Dharma. That means we should not focus on the diverging viewpoint of the different schools of Buddhism, but look at Buddhism as a whole, single teaching of the Buddha. Then we have a much better chance of bringing ultimate happiness to all mankind. Today, many Westerners believe that Buddhism is mostly on meditation, about the practice of meditation or Zen. Some have no distinction between a yoga teacher or meditation teacher or even breathing exercise, Qigong, by various instructors. Many do not distinguish between a bhikshu, a yogi or an instructor at all, because there are so many confusing information on the internet. There are so many confusion information and advertising all over the place. The Buddha teaching has an answer and solution to problem faced by the people who living in this time, in this materialistic world. It is practical, it is applicable, because what the Buddha taught result directly from his own experience. It means that anyone can follow his teaching, can follow his practice by purifying his mind and realize the true nature and become awakened. However, many people, especially newcomers, that came to the Buddhist temple today, all they see is a lot of ritual or chanting in native language, be it Chinese, Vietnamese, Thais, or Tibetans, but not much teaching. I have a lot of friends who are Westerner, where I encourage them to go to learn about Buddha teaching. But all of them came back and told me that they have not seen much teaching, but they've seen a lot of chanting and ritual in a foreign language. Even though ritual may help one in their own spiritual quest, but what the Buddha teaching is about helping people to understand and solve problems of suffering, to resolve the body mind, and end birth and death. These profound teaching must be understood and must be taught to solve today's problem that we are facing. So I believe for the Buddha teaching to be successful and flourish in the 21st century, we need to have more properly trained Dharma teachers who cultivate in monastery with profound knowledge of the Dharma, as well as understand the current issue that people are facing today. We need to have more Buddhist books in different language. And also in these books, we need to have the book that can explain the Buddha teaching using today's languages. Because the most difficulty when learning about the teaching of Buddha is the issue with terminology. And some terminology is very different to explain. And we need to have more practical books that deal with what's going on in today's society and in the world. Today, we are living in a very fast changing world. Today, we're living in a place when technology controls many things. We need to have more, we need to take advantage of this technology. Today, you don't need a lot of printed book because many books can be downloaded from the internet. You can learn about Buddhism from your iPhone. In the past, people had to travel very far to learn about the Buddha teaching. In the past, you see that in China, Dharma Master Yuan Chang in the Tang Dynasty had to travel all the way from China, all the way to India to learn. And many, many people from China had to travel to India. Many people from different countries all had to travel very far to learn about Buddha teaching. Today, you can find a lot on the internet, almost any sutra, any teaching, you can Google it, you can find it. Therefore, I believe this is time we need to take advantage of technology to make the Buddha teaching available to people around the world. We need to have more classes online, and especially these classes have to start now from the basic to the more advanced. We can also follow the 5 periods of Buddha teaching for different audience, from the beginner all the way to the advanced. Follow the 5 periods, such as the Agama periods, the Vaipuya periods, the Prasna periods, the Dharma flower periods, and the Avatansaka period, all the way from the very basic all the way to the very advanced. Because today, when Westerner people, or when people who want to learn about the Buddha teaching, they're confused because there are so many different topics. They don't know where to start. I also believe that we need to have more discussion about the Buddha teaching, especially with question and answer for the people who are interested to learn more, but some of them may still hesitate or have certain doubt. For example, why do you want to learn about Buddha teaching? What is Buddhism? Why do you want to be a vegetarian? What is a cause? What is a karma? What is a cause and karma? To bring the Buddha teaching to more practical level when people can apply to their daily living, especially during this time of very difficult time. And I really believe that by having more classes and more Buddha teaching be able to apply to the daily life, we can really help mankind in this difficult time. We need to organize more forums to exchange viewpoint between the scientific community and the monastic community to discuss, to share information. Because today, if you look at some book in neuroscience and Buddhism, there are a lot of commonality. For example, how does the mind work? How does a mental state affect the health of the people? How does the thinking, the rational, the behavior people associate that one with that mental state? How does Buddhist practice and knowledge can transform emotion? There are so many interesting topics, and we need to have more forum and more exchange between the science community and the monastic community based on learning from each other on the Buddha teaching. Even though technology today is dominate our world, but there are also issues with technology. Even though the computer is very popular, but we have issue with information overload when so much information overwhelms people. We have a lot of self-proclaimed guru and Buddhist master on the internet teaching. Many of them have quite a number of followers. It's very similar to a cult-like group of people who have workshop, who have retreat, teaching all kind of nonsense, and they call it Buddhism. And we really have to be very, very careful because there are so many different viewpoints, so many different fake news on the internet, on YouTube, on Twitter, on WeChat, on Facebook. Therefore, finding a proper information requires serious investigation. Finding a genuine teacher who are proficient in the Buddha Dharma is not easy. Therefore, I really believe that all the Dharma master, all the people who follow the Buddha teaching must unite, must get together and create the genuine forums, genuine news, and to help people today to want to learn more about Buddha Dharma. So let me stop my presentation today and leave it up for some question and answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Wu, for your wonderful introduction about the need to propagate Buddha Dharma in the 21st century. Any questions for Professor Wu? If not, I would like to propose a couple questions for you, Professor Wu. I think one of the things I truly recognize the importance of your talk about the the importance of propagating the Dharma in the 21st century. Dharma can be introduced in the education system today. Especially, we do have many Buddhist universities that around the world. What kind of teaching and practical utilization of the Buddha Dharma you think they could facilitate?
Today, there's a lot of interest in Buddhism, and many people all over the world want to learn about it, but they have to have the right person who teaching the Buddha Dharma. A couple years ago, when I was at Google, there's a forum. They invite a number of people in Google to teaching the Buddha Dharma and especially meditation. There are several genuine Dharma master who really know what he's talking about. But also there's a couple self-proclaimed people also who claim they have been enlightened and want to learn meditation, pay me something and I can help you to go to nirvana, something like that. So within the university, there's a lot of people who has high degree in Buddhism, but those are scholars. And being in the university, I do know these scholars may be researched and doing very well, but they specialize in certain aspect of Buddhism, but they don't know how to apply them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using a lot of terminology that confuse students. So I think today, in order to propagate Buddha Dharma, we have to use common word that people understand. Because when we start to go to a very scholarly research and using a special terminology, people don't understand. And even with meditation, we have to start from the very basic meditation rather than having a lengthy meditation session that may last a few hours and people cannot follow that. So we really have to start from the very basic fundamental, especially when every time in university, when you have a class like meditations, there's a lot of people who are interested in it. But when I went to those classes, I saw that the people teaching them, several of them was formerly aerobic instructor or gym instructor who take maybe a couple hours of meditation and begin to going out and teaching. I asked them. One time I asked a person who teaching meditation in university, and he admit that he took a 1 week session from some guru, and he think he can teach that because he told me that all you had to do is sit still, do nothing. And you know, when I asked him, he know nothing about Buddhism. So I think that we have to be very careful. And I do believe that the need right now is to have more genuine Dharma teacher who really cultivate and practice in monastery and be able to go out and teaching rather than rely on all kind of people who can claim that they can teach.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with you that mindfulness now is becoming not widespread in the world, but it's becoming a big business, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes.
We have a question here, a couple questions here. One from Monica. Professor Wu, what should be the first step to unite all different types of Buddhism? I also wish that there will be more teachings of Buddha's Dharma in English.
I do believe that we need to have a number of forums when all the sect of Buddhism get together and work together. We have a common goal of propagating Buddha Dharma. So regardless whether we came from a Theravada tradition or Mahayana tradition or Tibetan tradition, I think all of those groups must get together. And I think that we need to have a forum where all of these people get together, find a common cause, and work together to propagate the Buddha Dharma. That's the first step.
Before
Before
go ahead, John, do you want to stop sharing your screen so that people can see you better?
I'm sharing the screen right now.
Do you still need to share your screen? Can you stop sharing that?
Stop sharing, okay?
Yeah. If you don't need to use that, you can stop sharing screen. Yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah, it's fine. It's good. Sorry, Ray, you can start. Continue.
Right, I think I was, Monica has a question that understand or practice the Buddha's teaching. Wait a minute, hold on. Let me.
Yes, I do believe that in order to propagate the Buddha Dharma, we need to have the teaching in English, in a common language many people can understand. Today, many of my friends who went to temple and monastery told me that if they went to a Vietnamese monastery, most people and most Dharma teachers speak Vietnamese. And if they went to a Chinese monastery or temple, they all speak Chinese. There are very, very few places that speak English. So I think that using a common language today, I think English is the most common language today and people understand. Hopefully in the future, we'll have people who can speak other language, French, Germans, Spanish, and eventually we can propagate the Buddha Dharma that way.
Here's another question by Kang. As a young person living in a family of two types of members, those who practice in rituals, chanting, praying for the wealth and so forth, but don't actually understand or practice the Buddha's teaching. And those who avoid learning about anything vaguely religious at all. Do you recommend any action or direction besides striving to sincerely practice on my own?
Well, Kans, I really appreciate your questions. I do understand that. Many of the people from the elderly generation prefer the ritual because that is the way they was brought up. They went to temple and basically go to the ritual and chanting. Now, as a younger person, I do recommend you, first of all, to find more books to learn from books. And eventually attending some workshop, some retreat, and attending some, there's a lot of things that you can find from different Dharma master, genuine Dharma master that you can start to follow. But I would starting out with reading book first, finding some books, some very good books that be able to explain the Buddha teaching from the fundamental to the more advanced. You cannot change the elderly who has been chanting and go to very, very difficult. But for you, you can also practice by reading books and attend some workshop. And I hope that in the near future, when the COVID is, subsided, we'll have more and more open classes, especially today. I really believe that at CTTB, we do have a number of classes. I think Dharma Yin Yang has a precept class, and I think Dharma Shore and Dharma Chi also have a lot of classes online. And I would recommend you to start attending those classes. Then you can learn pretty much by yourself.
Let's see. I just saw another one. Thanks for the great talk, Professor Wu. Here's a question. Are you aware any ethics course in higher education institutions incorporating Buddha's principle?
Yes, I think that today people, especially in the technology world, they began to recognize that ethics is important. However, the ethics class right now, let me take an example of where I know very well in my university. In order to have an MBA, you had to take an ethics class. Even though ethics class is required, but the practice is not. It is very, you read from a textbook, say you have to do this and this and this. But when you're going out to the corporation, your boss telling you differently. So I really believe that in the near future, we have to bring ethics, especially the teaching of Buddha, into the main business and technology. Because I have worked in technology and I have a lot of issue with ethics. I have a lot of issue with people in technology. And today with AI and robotic, we have been working in robotic for a number of years. And personally, as a professor in AI and robotic, I'm scared. I can tell you that today, the robot is getting very, very smart. And it's almost getting out of control. If we don't build the morale and the ethic into the practice, into the classes.
Well, maybe, I don't know, Professor Ron Epstein is in the audience. Professor Epstein has written a book on the application of Buddha's ethics in almost everything. He called it responsible living, all right, which I think is the key in moving forward in the future, as you pointed out. AI and other stuff overtaking our ability to catch up with them, right? Yes. And so in any project one's engaged in, and collectively responsibility got to be a key consideration. And Ron, are you in the audience?
He is. He's in the audience, and he can unmute himself if you like.
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Ron.
Hi. Thank you for your wonderful talk, and thank you, Ray, for your kind words. Yeah, I think what Professor Wu has been saying is right on, and I hope he'll lead the way in bringing practical ethics, maybe first to the computer world, and then from there to all walks of life. So that's my hope.
Even I'm hiring already, but I do very interested in creating a class in ethics in technology.
Wonderful.
That's great. I think it's very interesting to continue this exploration in that I don't think we take too much responsibility, all right, when we are doing a project and things like that. We do in terms of whether this product will be efficient, whether this product will be, will make a lot of money or things like that. But we don't take into consideration that in 20 years, this technology may burn up the whole atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So in making that responsibility as a part of the project consideration is great. I think on the other hand, if you look at the Professor Claire Brown's book on Buddhist economics, I mean, that is clearly brought into the total consideration in making economic policy decisions. in the sense that the current capitalism principle will help the top 1% to grow faster and faster, richer and richer, right? Whereas the bottom, 50% is crawling there trying to feed their family. And I think one view to look at Buddhism is that in terms of problem solving, you do look at the whole picture, right? In a sense, we are all connected. We're all one. When you take that into consideration, your responsibility is not strictly rest in yourself, say, or your organization, but the whole humanity, all right? And that is the kind of thing I think Buddhist University needs to think about, but not just the ethic per se, but how to melt the ethic into the everyday thinking, looking the whole problem as a whole rather than as machines. All right, we've been used to thinking of organizations and other things like a machine. So by looking at them as machines, we only see transactions.
Yes.
Right? We don't see all the process flow in between. We don't see all the feedback, sometimes short-term feedback, sometimes long feedback, and the consequence of those feedbacks. All right. Only when you consider that the whole thing, can one really looking at the whole problem like ecology, things like that. And Professor Wu, you have any more comments on this?
Yes, and I think that if we look at the classes today, I have reviewed some of the class taught at the MBA programs on ethics. Most of the class are focused on right and wrong and not get involved in anything illegal. But it did not go into the basic. And I think the basic is understand greed, understand anger, understand illusions. Those are the key things that we need to bring in the ethics class, not the right or wrong, or can you do that, or this is illegal or not legal. That's an issue of law, but it's not an issue of ethics, and I believe. So I think that we have to make some changes and basically bring out the Buddha teaching, especially the three poison one, into the ethics class and really going down to the fundamental. Because I think from a legal point of view, the law school have all kinds of class about it. And the ethics class is right now is still focused on you can do this, this is right thing to do, this is wrong thing to do. But when people go out and work, they don't see that.
Well, but in addition to the ethical part, from my view, personal point, Buddhism provide us a full set of tools about problem solving. All right.
Yes.
We don't, but we don't treasure that. We think, for example, Four Noble Truths. Well, yeah. It's Four Noble Truths, and you follow. It's a methodology, but we don't apply them.
Yes.
All right. And if you do apply them, the first thing is, well, there's a suffering. Well, how do you know there's a suffering, right? So you start from have a mindfulness practice, so you observe yourself, observe things like that. These are the application of Buddhism to practical problem solving that include responsibility.
Yes, definitely. And I do believe that Buddhism can offer a great deal to society today, but we just don't have the right person, and we don't have enough person who basically learning about the Buddha teaching and be able to practical applying that in the current life. So I think we need to more of that, especially if we have those, it had to be in the language that people understand, the today language, not the 1,000 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the application I mean, Dalai Lama has for decades provide the connection between Buddhism and science, all right, including many fields of science. And so is Edgar Mitchell's Institute of Neotic Sciences, which he founded trying to connect consciousness and science. So there are many things that's happening, like you have suggested. And there are books talking about psychologists from his own personal experience talk about the reincarnation, right? Several such. So there are quite a few knowledge around, but I think in terms of like our university, WU, I think such a university have an obligation to bring these together and present it to the students, so that student not only become a good person only, but is equipped with problem-solving capability where no other educational institution offer, because it's a deeper level of perception rather than just I learned this, equations, how to solve the equations, things like that. All right, there's much deeper, but those are the treasures of Dharma that, as you pointed out, we need to bring them out.
Yes, definitely. And we also have to using a common language that people understand, today language. And I do believe that, I do suggest that in the near future, CTTB may organize more forums, the forum between the monastic community and the scientist community, and also the business community. We have to bring those community together and going back to the basic. This is what Buddha have taught for 1,000 years and has been used in the past successfully. If you look into history, you can look into several dynasties that apply Buddhism in the way they manage the country very successfully.
Right. Yeah, in fact, if you look at the Four Noble Truths, one way is the ability to solve problems. The other way to look at it is teaching leadership.
Yes.
All right. Leadership is a very different kind because you have to look inside first.
Yes. Well,
let's see.
The entire university and courses need to really apply. If they can apply, they will be successful. I love to see some course like that at the top school like Harvard, Stanford, Princeton.
Right. Here's another question. Then ask which sutra to start the systematic learning of Buddhism. There are many important sutras according to the Master Hua. Is there a starting point to get in the door?
It's very much depend on your situation. I know that some people, like some of my friends, really like the Avatamsaka Sutra. Personally, to me, I prefer the other sutra, especially the Vikramamitri Sutra. Personally, I like that much better. But again, you can select anything, because if you go to the heart of the sutra, what the Buddha taught, they all the same.
Right.
He speaks to different people with different understanding, from the farmer, from the very basic people, all the way to emperors and scholars. I mean, you can see that in beauty in every sutra. So select one that you may find interesting, and then start to reading that, because personally, all Buddha teaching is very basically the same.
Okay, here's some more. Let me Here's another comment. I find that reading sutras and commentaries by Venerable Master Hua available at CTTV are very helpful in our day practice. We are so fortunate to have these books in English language. And
I saw also the PTTS just published the Lotus Sutra, the whole volume of Lotus Sutra, and also the Verkama Mitri Sutra, just been published, I think, last year. So I do recommend those sutra if you are interested in learning.
Well, let's see. I don't. Here's a comment. Dharma Master Hundat in Texas wrote an article in the Social Study Texan titled Advocacy for Teaching About Buddhism as an Elective Course in Social Studies. It ties it in beautifully with your talk. So this is a comment.
Thank you, Steve. I'll try to find out about the books. And I hope that in the near future, we would have more talk like this. Today, we have a very limited time. So I just only very briefly focus on a few challenging an issue that I personally saw. This is personally my personal opinions, but I'm sure that in the future, we'll invite Dharma Master Young, will invite more people, and we'll probably, Dr. Ye, we may want to create organize forums for more dialogue between the different Dharma master to talk about this kind of topic.
Well, what would you recommend, Professor Wu? You know, there are many fields in that discussion between Buddhism and science and so forth. And in your view, what are the most important aspect or needs to be brought out first, for example?
I think that if we can invite a few neuroscientists to discuss about how the mind works and meditate, those are interesting topics.
Yeah, that's there. I don't remember the name, but there are a couple of books published recently by Professor at Stanford talking about the relationship between meditation and deep meditation and neuroscience and how the brain works. All right, that's I forgot the name of the it's published a couple years ago. And I also know of someone of very interesting, of the former president of Taiwan University, who was a graduate of Stanford, EE, has spending 30 years to study, initially beginning with study Qigong, and then gradually looking at how the mind works. Extremely interesting research work. For example, when we talk about organs, you can exchange your functions, right? He actually did it, things like that. So these are very, very interesting topics that could be brought up. And of course, the Institute of Neotic Science have done a lot of things on pre-recognition. That is, how fast can you know something is going to happen? All right. I'm very dumb. I tried the experiment. I think mine is about 10 seconds. but there are many people very fast. All right, they just know something's going to happen. So these are very interesting topic, and I think Buddhism and psychology is going to be a very important and expanding field of study because of the mental patients. All right, that growing number of mental patients that around the world. See, let me see any other questions here.
They're mostly comments.
Yeah, most comment, right? So, any other questions? Ron, you have any further comments?
Ron, you have an unmute.
Okay, if not, I think we are about, we're just finished at the right time. So it's a perfect ending, but I'd like to thank Professor Wu for your inspiring talk, pointing out importance of propagating Dharma in different approach, so more applied Buddhism, and your suggestion to create more forums in this topic. And I think, oh, Ron,
Yeah.
Do you have comment?
I'm still here. I'm trying to propagate the Dharma in Kenya and also in Ukiah and next to CTTV, so it's a little confusing here. So I was delighted that we had this conversation. I think it's really important. And the one thing that I just wanted to add as an addendum, I think one of the things that the Buddhist University is getting to know how to do better and better is to develop some kind of balance between our own personal self-cultivation and making progress on our own in our meditation or whatever practice we have, and then turning the attention outside to use that energy and understanding on the Bodhisattva path to really engage with and take responsibility for the communities in which we're living. And I know Professor Wu touched on that, but I hope we can continue that discussion. So thank you for giving me this time to just mention this.
Well, there's a suggestion for you, Ron, is that perhaps you will do a reading of responsible living sometime in the future.
Hope so. Thank you, Ray.
Well, I want to comment on your comment on DRVU and Buddhist education in general. I think if we look at Buddhism from a broad perspective, it does not only provide us a place to stand to be a good person, but but from my little understanding of Buddhism is that it teaches us how to become a leader. And that's the kind of skill that I think young people go out to the society needed, in addition to being ethical, but also to be able to communicate well, to understand what are the general directions of the future, because when you look at the whole, you see what's emerging rather than just what's there, all right? So I think if we can relate to our education of Buddhism to this kind of practical application, not particular in the specific science like Buddhism and psychology, there's a lot of implication there. but every one of our students, when they go out, they will take the leadership to get things done. I think that, in my mind, is very clearly the mission for Buddhist education institution. Professor Wu, any more further comment before we call it the day?
I think that today, for the talk for today, for the time being, I think that will be fine. I would like to thank Dharma Master Jin Yong for inviting me, Dr. Ye for introduction and also comment on this. Also thanks the Dr. Yu Chen for the Chinese translation and for the Vietnamese DRBA translation group for translate my talk into Vietnamese. And thanks for the audience, for all of you, for your time. Amitabha.
Amitabha. Dharma Master Yong, would you guide us in the conclusion of paying respect?
Okay, I think Professor Wu has thanked a lot of people. So we have to thank Professor Wu for such a wonderful discussion. And I want to just let people know this next Sunday's event, the lecture. Next Sunday, hold on, let me share my screen. Next Sunday, we have Dharma Jin Xiu is going to talk about patience and the sense of the self. So same time as every week, we have every Sunday evening lecture. So the Zoom link remains the same. Also, I believe we also have the Vietnamese translation. And it's going to be on YouTube as well. And the exact link will let people know later. And so that's for next week. And I think we'll dedicate merit now. So we'll chant in Chinese today. Ni zi gong de zhuang yan po jing du shang bao si zhong wen xia ji san du ku ro you jian wen zhe xi fa bu di xin jin zi yi bao shen Gong Zhen Ji De Guang. Three head bows. In respect to the Venerable Master, again, thanks Dr. Professor Wu and Dr. Ye, Dr. Yu Chen, and everyone. Amitabha.